You're listening to the Online Business Blueprint brought to you by platformlaunchers.com. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us this week, as always, because here we talk about building and growing and monetizing our online platforms. We also talk about this idea of taking our passion, turning it into a platform, and earning a paycheck from it. And there's a variety of ways that we could do it, but there's also a variety of things that could keep us from doing it. And that's what we're going to talk about this week. We're talking about this idea of going from quicksand to clarity, specifically getting unstuck when you're feeling frozen. We've all had moments like that. And so that's what we're going to talk about. I just want to remind you we have a bunch of tools and resources and even our members club that you could jump on board and be part of our community over at platformlaunchers.com. I want to encourage you to stop over there and pay us a visit, and you'll find lots of things there that are going to help you as you build, grow, and monetize your online platform. But for now, let's talk about this idea of getting unstuck when you're feeling frozen. So, without being overly poetic, let me phrase it this way. There's a moment, sometimes it's a fleeting moment, sometimes it's a lingering type experience when you realize that you're stuck. I have had many moments like this. Maybe if you're listening to my voice right now, you've had moments like this as well. And when I say stuck, I'm not just talking about physically. I'm talking about this idea of maybe being emotionally stuck or mentally stuck or even feeling spiritually stuck. You find yourself going through the motions, but then you also feel like maybe you're not really moving forward. You feel like your ideas have stalled and your energy is drained and your motivation is buried somewhere beneath the weight of indecision or beneath the weight of discouragement. And it feels like quicksand. It seems like every TV show I watched when I was a kid, there was always quicksand in it. Well, that's what it feels like when we get stuck. It feels like we're in quicksand. And it's like the more you struggle without direction, the deeper you sink. And sometimes we feel stuck when we're trying to build the things we're building. So I just want to talk about that. And here's the truth related to this, because I've gone through seasons like this. And if you're listening to my voice right now, it would not surprise me if you have gone through seasons like this, or maybe you're going through one right now. But the truth of the matter is this: being stuck doesn't have to be a permanent thing. It's not a life sentence. It's a signal. It's not a life sentence. It's a signal. It's a signal that something needs to be shifted, that something needs to be clarified. And there's a journey out of stuckness. If I could use that word, I don't even know if that's an actual word, but I'll use it and claim it if no one else claimed it. There's a journey out of stuckness that I want to talk about. And I think it could be a bit uncomfortable, but I do think it could be transformational and it's helpful. And because I've experienced what it feels like to be stuck, whether it be emotionally or mentally or even sometimes spiritually, or just stuck with the development of my own business and my online platforms. I just want to talk about that if that's where you're at right now. And I think one of the things that we need to do right away is recognize what's going on. So I think before you can move forward, you have to name where you are. You have to look at where you're at. And I think stuckness, it shows up in a few subtle ways, because you'll find yourself maybe feeling like you're endlessly busy, but you're not making progress. Do you ever have moments like that? It feels like you're super busy, but you're not progressing in any direction, or you feel overwhelmed by your choices, or sometimes people don't say they feel overwhelmed by their choices. Sometimes people just feel underwhelmed by everything. And that could be like a symptom of stuckness. Sometimes you feel burned out, or sometimes you feel bored, or sometimes you even feel bitter toward your current circumstances. Or maybe you feel like you're unsure why you're doing what you're doing or who you're doing it for. These are all signs that at present maybe you're feeling stuck. And I think being stuck or feeling like you're stuck can be triggered by a variety of things. I think sometimes it could just be life transitions. Maybe you've just moved to a new area or a new career, or just things happening maybe like with the development of your children as they move into a new season of life. So life transitions can sometimes result in us feeling a little bit stuck. I think sometimes burnout can be a key factor. I think the fear of failure can be a key factor as well. Or for some people, they say, I've heard this more than once, some people feel like they get stuck when they succeed. And you're thinking, why would you feel stuck when you succeed? Well, when success doesn't feel as fulfilling as you hoped it would feel, sometimes you find yourself feeling a little disillusioned. You're like, wait a second, this worked and it's still not doing for me what I thought it would do for me. So there's all sorts of contributors that can cause us to feel stuck. And I'll tell you right off the bat, the key is not to shame yourself for feeling stuck. If you're feeling stuck right now, don't do what most people do. Most people shame themselves for it. I would encourage you not to shame yourself for it, but just recognize what's actually going on and look at it maybe as an opportunity or like a nudge to pause and to listen and to course correct and kind of interrupt what's going on here. There are many times when this experience has hit me, and when it does, it's usually connected, at least in my case, to a task that needs to get done, but it feels out of my depth, or maybe it feels over my head. And I look at it and I find myself trying to be maybe too self sufficient. I have an approach that I've been learning to take in the midst of this. And I'm going to share some of these things that I find particularly helpful. But I'll tell you what, as I share it, please allow me to share a few personal stories and personal examples along the way. But if you're feeling stuck, I'm going to share with you some of the things that help me when I'm feeling stuck to get out of that stuckness. And one of the first things that I've noticed that really helps me is if I just pause for a second. So you've seen the TV shows, right, where people get stuck in quicksand, and when they're stuck in it, if they get frantic, it just makes everything worse. So the same is true when we're emotionally stuck. Our instinct initially is to try to do something, but I've actually found that the most powerful first step is to just pause for a second or just be still for a second. When you recognize that you're feeling stuck, just pause for a moment. And when I say to be, to pause or to be still, I'm not talking about being passive, right? Stillness isn't passivity. It's intentional rest. It's the decision to stop spinning your wheels. And what you're deciding to do is to just get quiet enough to maybe move beyond the distractions that have been making it hard to focus. And I think it could be helpful, at least in my case, and maybe for you as well, to just spend some time in prayer, maybe even to spend some time journaling. I don't journal a whole ton at this season of life, but at one point I was doing that. It might be worth bringing that back. But some people find prayer helpful. Some people find journaling helpful. Sometimes people find it helpful to just walk or do something without a phone. I think what happens is if you can create a moment to genuinely pause and just a moment of stillness, what it does is it starts creating some space where some insight and some clarity begin to rise. Now, I'll tell you what's been most helpful for me when it comes to this. For me, it helps to take a few days to pause from my normal responsibilities. And it also helps if I take that pause in a new location. This past week, I just spent a week in Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. If you're listening right now and you live in the great state of Tennessee, I'm a Pennsylvania guy, but I love your state, and I want to be adopted, like an adopted inhabitant of your state because I just love the state of Tennessee. And I just spent a few days in Tennessee, most of a week, in fact, in Tennessee, and the rest was extremely helpful. I gained clarity in several key areas of life. I gained clarity in several key areas of business during that brief trip. And I feel like it's in moments of pause or moments of stillness like that where you can find yourself, you just stop reacting and you start reflecting. And reflection is typically a bridge between confusion and clarity. So start by just giving yourself permission to pause, not to try and do more right away, but start with pausing. Then, after you've spent some time pausing, then we can start making some more active steps. And one of the more active steps that I think we could take in a foundational way is to start asking some questions. I think once stillness has quieted the noise, we could start asking questions, and not questions like, what's wrong with me? Because that starts to produce shame. I think questions that are more helpful are, all right, what am I supposed to be learning in this moment? So let me suggest 4 questions for you that I think can be useful if you've been feeling stuck and you want to start interrupting that stuckness. Question number 1 is this: what part of my life feels out of alignment? What part of my life feels out of alignment? Just start with that one. Question number 2 is this: what was I created for that I don't seem to be doing? What was I created for that I don't seem to be doing right now? Question number 3 is this: what am I afraid will happen if I move forward? What am I afraid will happen if I move forward? And then number 4, and this one is, I think, for me, it's had the most significance. What would I pursue if I knew I couldn't fail? What would I pursue if I knew I couldn't fail? I think if we ask good questions, quality questions, I think the quality of our questions determines the quality of the direction that we take on the other side of the answers of these things. And when you're feeling stuck, I think curiosity is a little bit more helpful than criticism. From there, I think we need to reconnect with our why. I think clarity comes from reconnecting with purpose. You're not here to drift, you're here to build. You're here to serve, you're here to love, you're here to impact others' lives. But somewhere along the way, that purpose can get buried, and it typically gets buried under pressure, under comparison, or maybe because you've just been going through a season. And I have a few friends that have been going through seasons like this where they feel like they're just in survival mode. And because of that, they've maybe forgotten their purpose. Well, what once inspired you in the past, I can understand if it drifts toward feeling like an obligation and the things that you've dreamed of now start to feel like they're impossible. But your why, your deeper reason for doing the things you do, it's still there. It just needs to be uncovered again. It's still there. Like, it's still in your mind, it's still in your heart. The deeper reason why you do the things you do, it just needs to be rediscovered or uncovered. And so, as we're thinking about getting unstuck, maybe it's time for you to revisit the things that once lit you up. Think about the people that you most want to help. Think about some of the successes that you've had in the past as you've been helping those people. Think about some of the things, or maybe even reflect on what God himself may be prompting you toward. Listen to his voice as he's directing you. I think purpose is often found at the intersection of our passions and our pain and the unique gifts that God has given us. Allow yourself to rediscover your purpose. And also know this: getting unstuck doesn't usually require a massive leap. Oftentimes, it just takes a small, courageous or bold or daring or out of the norm step. Just one small step. I think sometimes it could be even as simple as maybe setting a new boundary. One of our members here on the call here, just before we went live with the podcast here, was talking about a boundary that he set, and that helped him to get unstuck with some of the things that he's trying to do. I think sometimes the small step that we take could just be maybe scheduling a conversation. Another one of our members said, he had a really good conversation, gave him some ideas and some clarity on a new platform that he's building. I think sometimes the small step could be maybe signing up for a class, or if like you feel stuck, maybe writing a book or something. Don't try and write a book, just try and write a page, right? That one small step of writing a page or applying for a new role somewhere, just anything like that. I think the path out of stuckness, I think it's paved with small acts of courage. And if you're a believer in the Lord like I am, sometimes it could be paved with small acts of obedience as you just listen to the leading of God. Movement creates momentum. You're not going to find momentum if something doesn't get in motion. Movement creates momentum, and one step will give you the proof that you're not stuck forever. I think action, even if it's imperfect action, can lead to building some clarity. But you know what else contributes to stuckness or just feeling, like you're in a quagmire? I think isolation can contribute to feeling stuck. I think it's a breeding ground for stuckness. I think it feeds the lies that you're the only one that feels the way you feel, or that everybody else has it figured out, and that your struggles maybe are a proof of your inadequacy. But the truth is, we all get stuck. Every creator gets stuck. Every leader gets stuck. Every entrepreneur, every believer. We all face seasons where clarity feels very cloudy. But you weren't meant to navigate those seasons alone. I don't think you can grow spiritually alone. I don't think you can grow professionally alone. So talk to a friend. If you've got a friend that you could talk to about these things, talk to somebody. If there's a coach you think would be beneficial to hire the coach. If there's a community that would be good for you to be part of, join a community. The idea is that we seek out mentors or seek out peers or seek out people who could speak into our situation, who offer perspective and encouragement and truth when our own voice is faltering. You might also find it particularly helpful to pay people to help you with tasks that you aren't interested in doing, or tasks that you aren't particularly good at doing, or tasks that you just don't have time to do. I have to tell you, one of the key things that has helped me get unstuck is to be willing to part with some money to pay people to help me with things that I'm not good at or don't have an interest in doing. And I'll tell you what, if you're thrifty like me, and I know we have some thrifty people even here live on the call, but if you're listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube, maybe you're thrifty as well. I have to tell you, if you're thrifty like me, you might be hesitant sometimes to pay people to do different things that they can help you with. I totally understand that. For a long time, that was something that I really wrestled with. And in certain areas, I think I wrestle with that still. But I have to tell you, some of my most liberating moments came after biting the bullet and choosing to pay for the help that I needed. So maybe that means paying an accountant. Maybe it means paying a coach. Maybe it means paying a contractor. Maybe it means paying a virtual assistant. Think of whatever area you're feeling stuck in right now. Maybe it's just something that's just above your depth, above your head, something that you feel inadequate toward, something that you don't feel like you can do very well because it's outside of your realm of expertise. I would say it's better to spend a little money than it is to remain on pause. There's some people that, because they're just so thrifty, like I have been, the early season of me building my online platform, I mean, I felt like in many respects I really had to be thrifty, but I think I waited too long to really invest in some things that I should have invested in. And I've been learning, one of the lessons I've been learning over time is that sometimes it's worth paying the person that does the thing all the time. I remember once I needed to repair a wall in our old house. And I kept looking at that wall and kept looking at it and kept looking at it. And it weighed on me every day. And finally I was like, what am I doing? I just need to pay a contractor. I paid a contractor. He had it fixed in 2 days, and I felt unstuck. And I thought, why did I wait so long to do that? Sometimes it's just about paying the person that can do the thing that you don't typically do. And then you get unstuck and you can start thinking about the things that you need to think about again. Getting unstuck, by the way, is not always instant. I think sometimes the journey involves waiting, trusting, doing the deep internal work that others can't see, but it doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're transforming. And in spiritual terms, if you would allow me to just be spiritual for just a moment, I think stuck seasons can be sanctifying seasons. I think they slow us down so God can speak to us. I think they strip away our ego because it shows that we can't be completely independent. I think it strips away our self-reliance. I think those stuck seasons can help deepen our roots in important areas. I think they can develop our faith. The journey out of stuckness, I think it's rarely linear. It may feel messy, it may feel frustrating, but every step matters. Every moment is part of the unfolding. And if I may, let me say one more thing before we wrap this podcast up. Eventually, the fog, it really does lift. If you're feeling stuck, it's not a life sentence. I mentioned that at the beginning. The fog eventually lifts. You'll feel the difference. I think ideas will start flowing again. I think your courage will rise. I think your clarity will sharpen. You may still have uncertainty in certain areas, but you'll also have direction. And when that starts happening, as you start getting gradually unstuck, celebrate that. Celebrate the small wins. One of the things that we do in our membership community is we celebrate our wins. We do that on purpose. It builds momentum. You want to celebrate the moment where you got some traction. Celebrate the moment you started seeing forward again. Celebrate the strength that it took to keep going and making progress. Clarity isn't just about a destination. It's also a mindset that we learn through reflection, through honesty, and through faith. If you're feeling stuck, understand this. You are not broken. You're basically, just take it like this. Take it as an invitation to grow. Don't rush through the quicksand. Let it teach you. Let it soften you. And when it's time, let it launch you. And I think your next breakthrough might be just right on the other side of that brave initial step that you take to get out of being stuck. So this is just a few thoughts that I have related to this. I hope something I shared here is helpful to you. I have gone through seasons where I have felt stuck. I'll even tell you, a couple of years ago, I went through a prolonged season where I was just really, really feeling stuck. And it took me a little bit to get out of it. But one of the big questions that I really had to wrestle with is, if I could rebuild my life from scratch, what would I do more of that I'm not doing enough of right now? And I asked myself that question, and it really came down to this idea of I was feeling stuck because I'm a teacher who needed to teach more than I was teaching. And when I realized that that was a missing piece for this season of my life, and I got clarity on that, I started teaching more, and all of a sudden, I felt less stuck. It's amazing how that works, right? But I had to go through that season of gradually discovering that. So I don't know if you're feeling stuck, but if you are, I hope some of these suggestions are useful to you as well. But that's it for this podcast episode for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to be able to jump on here with you and chat with you about these things. And I'd encourage you to stop over at platformlaunchers.com if there's any way that we could help you. We've got all sorts of resources there, our 21-day platform development planning guide, a link to jump on board with our membership community. We've got courses. We've got other things over there. Hop on platformlaunchers.com. You'll find it all there. But thanks so much for joining us this week. It's been a blast. I hope this helps you get unstuck. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to joining you together right here next time. Take care.